A gracious good day to one and all once again. 'Tis I, Norton the First, by grace of God, Emperor of the United States and Protector of Mexico, back with you all once again for episode number 155 of Emperor Norton's fantastic history vlog. Today is October 16, 2020, our 214th day under COVID-19. Programming note, there will be no Tuesday show next week. Imperial business to attend to. We'll be back on Wednesday with our longer format to catch us up, and we do have a big event coming up over the weekend, the anniversary of the Loma Prieta earthquake, but we'll talk about that on Wednesday. Let's begin with our national days today. It is National Dictionary Day, so look it up. World Food Day. It has nothing to do with eating. It actually has to do with hunger and food-related problems. Steve Jobs Day. Hats off to Steve Jobs. This entire vlog and podcast is created on an iPhone. And National Boss Day. So I guess be nice to your boss today. Moving on to our Florida man story. Now, we had a typo yesterday, so it got left off. So we'll do that one first, and then we have one for today. For the 15th, Florida man gets $37,500 after officer thought donut glaze was meth. And for today, the 16th, Florida man arrested after stuffing steak and lobster in his pants. Ever noticed how many things in Florida man have to do with stuffing things down your pants? What's that all about? For our San Francisco story today, we're going to rely, as we so often do, on John Ralston's wonderful book, This Date in San Francisco. It was on October 16, 1857 that Overland mail arrives in San Francisco. The first Overland mail service arrived in San Francisco on October 16, 1857. A 6-year federal contract had been awarded to the Butterfield Overland Stage Company to carry passengers and mail thrice weekly on stages between St. Louis, Missouri and San Francisco. The Bulletin reported the arrival of the stage, which had left St. Louis on September 16 and took a month to make the journey. At a quarter after 4 o'clock, the coach turned from Market into Montgomery Street. The driver blew his horn and cracked his whip, at which the horses, 4 in number, almost seemed to partake of his enthusiasm, and dashed ahead at a clattering pace. And as the dust grew up from the glowing wheels, at the same time, a shout was raised that ran with the rapidity of an electric flash along Montgomery Street, which throughout its length was crowded with an excited populace. As the coach dashed across, through the crowds, the hats of the spectators were whirled in the air, and the hurrah was repeated from 1,000 throats, responsive to which the driver, the lion of the occasion, doffed his weather-beaten old slouch and in uncovered dignity, like the victor of an old Olympic race, guided his foaming steeds toward the post office. Short story today, but we've got a longer one coming up. Let's move on to our other stories for today. 1829, the Tremont Hotel, considered to be the first U.S. modern hotel, opens in Boston. It is now a Courtyard by Marriott. 1847, Charlotte Bronte's book Jane Eyre is published. 1859, abolitionist John Brown leads 21 in raid on federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry, Virginia. 1875, Brigham Young University is founded in Provo, Utah. 1916, Margaret Sanger opens the first birth control clinic in the U.S. at 46 Amboy Street in Brooklyn. 1923, the Disney Brothers, Roy and Walt, cartoon studio is founded at 4406 Kingswell Avenue in the Los Feliz section of Los Angeles. 1934, Mao Zedong and 25,000 troops begin their 6,000-mile long march from the south of China to the north and west. 1939, George Kaufman and Moss Hart's The Man Who Came to Dinner premieres in New York City, running until 1941 for 739 performances. Great movie if you ever get a chance to see it. 1940, the Warsaw Ghetto is formed by German Governor General Hans Frank. On this day in 1946, Hans Frank, as well as numerous other Nazis, are hanged by Allied forces after the Nuremberg trials. 1941, the comic strip Gordo by Gus Ariola. It first appears in newspapers. One of my favorite comic strips from back in the day. 1950, the first edition of C.S. Lewis's The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is published in London. 1952, the Woolworths at Powell and Market in San Francisco opens in the historic Flood Building. It closed in 1997, then became a Gap store, which was permanently closed in August. So we'll see who goes into that historic location next. 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis begins as President Kennedy is shown photos confirming the presence of Soviet missiles in Cuba, the closest we have ever come to nuclear war. Arguably, there was another event in the 70s that was a mistake, but this one was pretty close. 1967, Joan Baez and 123 other anti-draft protesters are arrested in Oakland, California. 1968, Americans Tommy Smith and John Carlos famously give the Black Power salute on the 200-meter medal podium during the Mexico City Olympics to protest racism and injustice against African Americans. Not much has changed since, has it? It's Black Lives Matter. 1971, the amphitheater in McLaren Park is dedicated in San Francisco. It would later be named in honor of the Grateful Dead's Jerry Garcia in 2005. 1973, Henry Kissinger and Le Duc Tho controversially awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for negotiating a ceasefire in Vietnam that later failed. 1978, Polish Cardinal Karol Wojtyła, I can never pronounce it, Wojtyła, anyway, you get the idea, is, where'd it go? Is being elected as Pope John Paul II, pardon me. 1981, Harvey Fierstein's Torch Song Trilogy premieres in New York City. That's a hard one to do, it really ruins the voice. As you can see, 1984, Bishop Desmond Tutu wins the Nobel Peace Prize. 1992, the 1700th David Letterman show. We miss you, Dave. But Colbert's doing a good job, but we like Seth Meyers the best, sorry. The Daily Show's pretty good too. 2014, the Major League Baseball National League Championship, the San Francisco Giants, go Giants, beat St. Louis Cardinals 4-1. Our births today. 1758, Noah Webster, Webster's Dictionary. 1854, the famous British writer Oscar Wilde, actually Fingal O'Flaherty Willis, is born. And he visited San Francisco once, so we thought we would add that to our stories for today. And this is taken from an old article by the San Francisco Chronicle written in 1940. Young Oscar Wilde had been the center of a maelstrom of scandalous incident and publicity from the moment of his arrival in early January 1882. There was a sudden exaggerated vogue of sunflowers, lily, and Japanese parasols, all of which were said to evoke Wilde's enthusiasm. Newspaper reporters outdid themselves in ridiculing the 28-year-old lecturer. Cartoonists pounced upon him with a fervor less brutal than gleeful. Women draped themselves about the new lion, and the few men who found something sensible and telling in Wilde's advice and pronouncements on art and decoration were unheard for the most part in their masculine denunciation. The costume adopted by young Wilde, which included short breeches, long silk stockings, and a shoulder-length haircut, was hailed with horror and amazed contempt by young dandies educated to long, tight trousers, high, stiff collars, and full mustaches. News coverage of Wilde's American tour actually began the previous January, as it was pointed out during the winter publication. During the winter months, there were published in the Wasp and other California publications occasional jingles about Wilde. A popular song called Oscar Dear was received with condescending humor in the city's gay spots. Gay had a different meaning in those days. And the slang of the moment included such supposedly Wildean expressions as too utterly utter and just too, and do you yearn? Wilde arrived in San Francisco by train on Sunday, March 26, 1882, with his first lecture scheduled for the next evening at Platt's Hall. Charles E. Locke had rooms for him at the Palace Hotel, then the largest hotel in the world. After his Monday lecture, Wilde visited Oakland, then returned for his second lecture at Platt's Hall on the subject of art decoration being the practical and application of the aesthetic theory to everyday home life and art ornamentation. Later, Wilde made the obligatory tour of Chinatown, visited the Bohemian Club, toured San Jose, and then left San Francisco on April 8, 1882 in a blizzard of editorial denunciations. There you go. Other events for today. 1886, David Ben-Gurion is the first Prime Minister of Israel, is born in Poland. Eugene O'Neill. Wait a minute, these are birthdays. What am I doing? Oh, I am on birthdays, that's right. Sorry, I got lost because I had another story. Okay, 1888, Eugene O'Neill. 1917, Alice Pierce, who played Mrs. Kravitz on Bewitched. 1925, Angela Lansbury, Gaslight, Murder, She Wrote, is 95 today. She is one of the last still around of Hollywood's golden era, the studio era. Maybe the last one standing for all I know, but I think there's a couple more. I know we lost Olivia de Havilland recently, but there's still a few, but not many left from that era, that's for sure. 1927, Günter Grass, German writer and playwright, the Tin Drum, and Nobel Prize laureate. 1931, Watergate figure Charles Colson. 1938, Nico, singer and songwriter from the Velvet Underground. 1940, actor Barry Corbin, who played Maurice on Northern Exposure, one of our favorite series. 1946, Suzanne Summers was born in San Bruno. She was on Three's Company, but of course is also famous for The Thigh Master. 1947, Bob Weir, guitarist and singer for the Grateful Dead, born in San Francisco. 1947 as well, David Zucker, American director, Airplane, Naked Gun, Top Secret. 1960, Bob Mould, American rock guitarist, songwriter and singer, the bands Husker Du and Sugar. 1962, one of my favorite bass players, Flea, whose real name is Michael Balzari, is born, of course famous for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, also an actor and educator of the Silver Lake Conservatory of Music. Let us now move on to our deaths for today. 1793, Marie Antoinette, Queen of France, is beheaded at the age of 37, famous for uttering the, quote, "let them eat cake." 1959, George Marshall, U.S. Army general, famous for the Marshall Plan, the rebuilding of Europe after World War II. 1972, actor Leo G. Carroll, famous for the movie The Topper series of movies and also The Man from U.N.C.L.E. 1981, Moshe Dayan, Israel's general and minister of defense, the man with the black patch on his eye, the man called Moshe Dayan. 1983, George Liberace, American violinist, the brother of Liberace. He would always say, "I wish my brother George were here." Well, that's the brother George. There we go. 1999, Gene Shepard, American writer and actor. His stories became the movie A Christmas Story. He was also the narrator in that beloved Hollywood classic. Holiday classic, pardon me. 2001, jazz singer Etta Jones. 2004, Pierre Salinger. He was with the ABC network in their news department, but he was also the press secretary for President John F. Kennedy. 2007, Barbara West, one of the last survivors of the sinking of the Titanic. Not the last, but one of the last. 2010, Barbara Billingsley from Leave It to Beaver, but I loved her in the movie, the Zucker Brothers movie, Airplane, where she talks jive. Oh, I love that scene. If you've never seen it, look it up. She's great in the movie. Our quote today, well, who else? Oscar Wilde, of course. And it's a pretty famous quote. It's an odd thing, but everyone who disappears is said to be seen in San Francisco. It must be a delightful city and possesses all the attractions of the next world. I would not disagree with that. So, to wrap up, here's the information. If you would like to leave a tip, we certainly appreciate all of our generous donors. You can do a monthly subscription through Patreon or make a one-time donation through PayPal or Venmo. A lot of this equipment that we have now is due to our generous donors, like the green screen. We purchased a better microphone, I think. It's pretty good, I think. The remote control for the camera, better lighting. We're really upgrading, trying to put on a better show. Hope you like it. Also, tours are starting again, not just the Emperor Norton's fantastic San Francisco Time Machine, my original tour. Other tours will come back down the line. We want to gauge how things go on the most popular one before we bring the other ones back. Saturdays only, starting November 7, 11 a.m., Union Square. We are limited to 10 people on the tour. You must wear a mask. You must socially distance. If you are not wanting to do either of those things, do not take my tour. It's that simple, because it will be strictly enforced. You show up without a mask, you're not taking the tour. So, until we see you again, stay safe, stay inside if you're feeling symptoms, and therefore stay healthy. Now, if you do go outside, just wear the mask. Oh, we'd be in such better shape now if we'd done that way back when. It was encouraged. It was considered the norm. It was not thought to be something that's not macho. Toxic masculinity. Don't get me started. A lot of our problems today are from that. Do not take unproven cures that might kill you. There was another report today about just how ineffective hydrochloroquine is. So don't do it. Be kind to one another. We used to know how to do that. We have seemed to have forgotten. Get it back. Until we see you again, a gracious good day.